This is December 2016 Lake of the Ozarks crappie fishing report. This report is courtesy of Joe's Lake Ozark Guide Service. You may have seen some of my bass fishing reports. I also do crappie trips, so I thought I'd throw out a December crappie fishing report for everybody. This report is for the upper lake area, so my house is right around the 55-mile marker, so most of my crappie fishing is going to occur in that area because there's pretty good crappie fishing in this area. The lake level is about 3 feet down from summer pool. They're in the process of pulling it down to winter pool, which will be about 5 feet down, 5 to 6 feet below the summer pool. Water is actually pretty clear. You can see down about a foot, foot and a half, which for the upper lake area, that's pretty clear water. And the water temperature is very, very cold. It's 37 degrees. It maybe touched 38. The surface touched 38 degrees yesterday when I was out on the water bass fishing, but the water temperature this morning is around 37 degrees. So the water's pretty cold, so that definitely has an effect on the fish. And that last major cold front we had right there before Christmas really dropped the water temperature in the upper lake area. All right, catching crappie, basically two different ways. Vertical jigging over brush piles and shooting docks. Now the vertical fishing over brush piles yesterday or this morning when we did some crappie fishing, the brush piles weren't that deep. We were only about 7-8 foot of water. The brush piles, the top of the brush pile was in about 4 foot of water, and we were fishing just over the top of the brush pile and catching some medium-sized crappie, good pan size, I guess you would call those, to put in the pan and fry. Most of the bigger crappie that I catch this time of year is the process of shooting docks. Shooting docks is where you take your jig and you bend the rod tip like a bow and arrow technique, and you shoot it and catapult it. It catapults it up under the dock. And what happens is these big crappie live in these dark spaces under the dock, and it's a lot better technique to do on sunny days because it forces all those bigger crappie in the dock. And you basically want to put it into the deepest part of that dock where it's the darkest, and that's where you'll catch some of the bigger crappie. In fact, I've got a couple that I'll show you here. When I catch fish, I went out and caught a limit this morning, but I'm not going to clean a whole limit. I'm only just going to clean what I need to clean. But here's a couple decent sized crappie that I caught this morning shooting docks, and those are two pretty nice Lake of the Ozark crappie right there. This one here is over a pound, so anybody would love to have that in a crappie tournament, but these are nice Lake of the Ozark crappie. I'll clean those in a few minutes. But basically, caught those crappie shooting back up underneath the dock. Now, when I do shoot the jigs up underneath the dock, I use a 16th ounce jig almost all the time because that way I know how fast it's going to fall in the water column. I usually don't mess with heavier or lighter jigs. I might use a little heavier jig if I'm vertically fishing over a brush pile that's deeper, or if I'm vertically fishing over a brush pile and it's pretty windy and I just can't feel it as well. But when I'm shooting docks, my first cast or shot that I put under that dock, as soon as the bait hits the water, I'm going to click my bail and I'm going to start reeling the bait back so it covers that first foot or foot and a half, 2 feet of the water column. Because a lot of these crappie on these sunny days, the big ones, they'll suspend right up underneath the dock foam. That's where they'll get. And so if I don't get bit fishing that upper part of the water column, the next shot will go into the same hole of the dock, shoot up in there, and I'll let the jig sink about 4 or 5 feet. And then I'll click my bail and start reeling it back. And then if I think they're holding on the bottom, then I'll let it fall almost all the way to the bottom. Keep an eye on my depth finder and click it back. But if you don't have a graph or a depth finder, you can use that technique. Work your way at the top and then work your way down. If you do have a graph or depth finder, you can motor by the dock and look up underneath it with your side imaging, and you can tell where the brush is, and then you can also see where the brush is located. And usually the crappie are going to sit on top of brush piles. That's usually where they sit. They don't really necessarily get down in the brush piles, so to speak. They kind of hang around the outsides of these brush piles, so you can fish just above it. And as we all know, crappie are because where their eyes are located on the head, they like to feed up. So if you kind of keep the bait above them, they'll definitely come up and get the bait. Vertical jigging, I basically just pitch the jig out there, let it pendulum back toward me, and then just kind of vertically jig it and just kind of smooth it around the dock, and then you'll feel that slight little tug or pull. But most of the bigger crappie I do catch in this time of year are shooting docks underneath. Now, a lot of people kind of get hung up on colors. I don't worry about colors that much. I'm going to show you the colors that I use, but if you talk to any crappie fisherman, they'll tell you that this certain color is better than all the others, and then you go to the next guy and he'll say, no, this color is better than all the others, and they both caught the same number of crappie. So, you know, there's so darn many crappie in our lakes that every color that out there that's made is going to work. You'll stumble into enough crappie. So let me show you some of the colors that I like to use. When the water's clear, I like to use a kind of a blue ice or a blue and white. This is a Bobby Garland Slab Slayer. It's a really good tube jig. That's pretty good in clear water. And then when we get into the darker water conditions like we have here in the upper Osage, take that kind of a blue and chartreuse. I think that's called a bluegrass. Bobby Garland Slab Slayer. I think that's bluegrass. Straight chartreuse is always good. Have a lot of success with these two colors in the upper lake area. Just a black with a chartreuse tail and red with a chartreuse tail. I like to use this red with the chartreuse tail, especially during the spring when they're spawning. But again, colors can be very overrated. Everybody gets in an argument. Some guys like pink. You know, I don't really use painted jig heads. Some guys swear by it. Just depends on what your personal preference is and what gives you the most confidence to do that. So, if you're looking for some crappie action when we get into the spring, give me a call. I'll put my phone number here on the bottom of this video. This is reports courtesy of Joe's Lake Ozark Guide Service. Have a happy new year and good fishing.